Kylian Mbappe gave an interview recently, which got everybody in South America in a tizzy. He said that the top teams in Europe are better prepared for the World Cup because they've played more high-level games over the course of this cycle. And people in Brazil and Argentina, Uruguay took great offense to that. It never ceases to amaze me how human beings, and we're all like this to some degree, we don't mind criticizing ourselves, but we don't like when others do it. The Brazilian media has spent, and I consume it every day, it's spent the last 3 years belittling the level of opposition in South America, bemoaning the lack of games against European sides, sounding alarm bells about what that could mean for the World Cup, never missing a chance to point out that in each of the last 4 World Cups, the first knockout stage game that Brazil played against a European side, they lost. Brazil have not won a World Cup knockout game against a European side since the 2002 final against Germany. And a European side has won the last 4 World Cups. All 4 semifinalists in 2018 were European. So the Brazilian media has been basically saying the exact same thing Kylian Mbappe said. But when he said it, then the reflexive patriotism kicks in and they started clapping back against him and it became this whole thing. I found nothing wrong with what he said. To me, it's factual, inarguable. And, they always, in South America, they always play the La Paz card. Fabinho and Emiliano Martinez came on and said, well, you go play in La Paz against Bolivia and see if it's easy. And again, that totally misses the point. That has no relevance to playing in a World Cup. We know that.
Well, no, it doesn't. It has relevance. What are you talking about? He took a shot at the quality of competition and the level of competition that these teams are playing against.
We know, and this is true of CONCACAF too, what makes qualifying challenging a lot of times is external factors.
Sure.
The hostile crowd, the bad pitches, the altitude, etc. But okay, I agree. That makes qualifying challenging. That has no relevance to playing in a neutral tournament in a World Cup. When you get into the knockout stages of a World Cup, what dictates whether a game is difficult or not is entirely the quality of the opposition. And in that sense, yes, European sides over the course of the cycle, playing the Euros and the Nations League, they play more high-level opponents than Brazil and Argentina do. I mean, it's inarguable. Look at this Nations League. Look at the groups. Germany.
You're discounting the history of people.
England, just by virtue of playing this Nations League, are going to get 4 games, 2 against Germany, 2 against Italy, right before they go to World Cup. Don't you think that helps them prepare as opposed to Brazil and Argentina playing against who they play in South America day in, day out?
I'm not saying that at a World Cup where everything is pristine, in a sense it's sterile, right? That ultimately, it's about the 2 soccer teams on the field. But those 2 soccer teams on the field, they come with their history and with their experience and their baggage that informs how ultimately they are going to play. And so, yes, the experience of playing at La Paz it's within them, right? And I do think that there is a value to it that can manifest in that sterile environment that is, or the ideal. Sterile's not necessarily fair because it can certainly be passionate and emotional, but it's very different. It's a neutral environment. It's not one team or the other team. So, but I don't think that I think you have to give much more credence and value to the experience that these teams have informing how they ultimately play in those environments.
I'll say this about it. I have, as a Brazilian, I have some issues with this Finalissima. It bothers me that the Confederations Cup has seemingly been scrubbed from the record books. And ahead of the Copa America final last year, John Strong and Stu Holden were peddling this narrative that Neymar has never won an international trophy. And yet they've come up with this Finalissima and trying to imbue it with all this prestige so that when Argentina invariably wins this, for Messi, it'll count as a major trophy. That bothers me. But I will say this, I am somewhat jealous that by virtue of having won the Copa America, Argentina are getting a game against a top European opponent, even though Italy didn't qualify for the World Cup.
Still, that's
Brazil are not. They've tried. The dates didn't work out, friendlies, etc. And so it looks like Brazil are going to go into this World Cup having not played against a major European opponent in this cycle. I think that is a big issue. So, if Kylian Mbappe's point is, well, France, we have played games against other of the favorites in the Nations League. They faced Belgium, Spain, like I said, and, a team like Brazil hasn't. I think there is something to that.
Come on, man. Well, look at some of these groups that these teams that qualified for the World Cup have been through. I was, yesterday I was going through all of the different teams that qualified and doing some background and some research. And inevitably, when you go through it, they maybe faced one real competitive opponent ultimately in going through. And to your point about this finalissimo, I'm excited because it's two great teams that have incredible players on both sides playing against each other. I don't think, and maybe you've heard something different. I mean, I guess there will be a trophy because there's always trophies at the end of this thing, but this should not even come close to Messi winning Copa America or even, the old Confederations Cup when it comes to that.
Well,
I mean,
please
100%.
Relay that to John Strong and Stu Holden.
100%. I agree with it. And if they are using that, that's ridiculous.
Just to not to belabor this point, but in the first edition of the Nations League, France was in a group with Germany and the Netherlands. So they got to play each of those teams twice. Then at the Euros, France was in a group that included Germany and Portugal. So they got to play those two teams. The second edition of the Nations League, I forget who was in their group, but they got to the Final Four. They played Belgium in the semis and Spain in the final. In this Nations League, they've got Croatia and Denmark in the group. I'm just saying, over the course of a cycle, you're playing.
But what group was France in for qualifying for the World Cup?
This might take me a couple minutes.
No, because we're talking about ultimately qualifying for the World Cup.
No, but he made a comment, and Mbappe made a comment in general. European teams over the course of a cycle play more high-level games than Brazil and Argentina do. That was the quote. And somehow everybody in Brazil and Argentina lost their over that.
Okay.
There's a rare Mosse.
Look, I do agree with you, and it is human nature. And it happens for families, right? I mean, I can scream and yell about my family and the ridiculousness and the dysfunction and the craziness that we have. But God forbid somebody from the outside, then not only me, but we all join forces and say, oh, no, that doesn't play. And we do it in American soccer. We do it in America. We do it in all sorts of things. We have plenty of problems that we highlight and talk about and debate and discuss when it comes internally as to who we are as a country. But we bristle and we come together when others from the outside start saying bad things. So that I don't think that's going anywhere, and I don't think that should be surprising in any walk of life.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.